Good evening, everybody. It's Shamika. I'm your instructor, and we are talking about tonight vendor management systems. And it's kind of an extension on Module 2 where we talk about marketing and how to get that contract in 30 days. So I wanted to do something a little bit extra to kind of talk more on different market strategies, different ways you can market your business. So I've been doing these additional Zooms this past week. Starting on, I did Tuesday, Thursday, and then this will be the last one. So Tuesday and Thursday talked about cold calling, marketing using Medicare.gov, as well as Facebook Creator and Insta, some ways that you can market your business. And then tonight we're going to be talking about vendor management systems. So one of the reasons I want to touch on vendor management systems is because it's a big part of the healthcare staffing industry. So it's actually already part of a lot of different industries, but more specifically in healthcare staffing, a lot of agencies, big or small, use them. So I wanted to kind of touch on how you can use them in different ways to understand if it's a good look for you, as well as how some of the hospitals use it. As well, I just wanted to touch on a couple of things for you guys. So all of the Zoom meetings, whether it's this or the modules or any of the ones that I do, are going to be on Eastern time. I do realize we have quite a few people in the course who are on different time zones. So I just wanted to let you guys know all of them are going to be on Eastern time zone. In the event section, it doesn't allow you to select Eastern. And I just assumed it corrected it based on where you were. So I think it may not, because a lot of people have jumped in a little bit earlier, a little bit late. And all of these sessions, including the weekly modules, are listed in the events section within the course. So they'll pop up in events and they'll also pop up under your activities. Okay, so as always, if you don't get a chance to catch us now, you can always catch us. It'll be saved tomorrow or later on tonight onto the actual post and in the group as a bonus video. So you can catch it there. If you have any questions, drop your questions. You can message me, or you can also ask any questions during our one-on-one or within the actual bonus video comment section. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. As well, guys, I hadn't touched on it. If you guys want help or assistance or guidance on doing Zoom meetings or getting comfortable with doing them, that's something that I'm open to doing. I prefer to do it on a one-on-one basis and just kind of give it to people who are interested in getting more information about it. So if you are, during our next one-on-one, when you email me your times, let me know you want to do a Zoom meeting and kind of help you walk through the process. So vendor management system. So there's different ways to get clients. We talked on Thursday about using the Medicare.gov system where you would really work with getting like your direct clients. So if it was ABC Healthcare in Delaware and I go to their facilities or contact them via email or on the phone and share with them the services that I have for staffing, and they accept my services and we exchange a contract and they agree to the contract terms. Typically, that's what we refer to as a direct client. So that client is working directly with my agency to provide staffing services. We have a contract that lists out the bill rates and any agreements, so on and so forth. But within healthcare, there's an alternative to that as far as obtaining clients. And what that's called is a vendor management system. So vendor management systems have been around for years, but they're fairly new to the healthcare arena. And essentially what it is, and this is kind of the definition that I got online for it, which is pretty much a good way to explain it, is it's the middleman. So a direct client is the agency, the staffing agency, and the client. They have the relationship and they work directly with each other. The vendor management system means that there's a third party. So that third party usually works on a web-based application that allows them to operate their business where they're able to house job opportunities in this internet-based system for temporary, permanent, short-term travel contract opportunities. And a lot of times they're managed by a service provider. So an example of this would be career staff manages the vendor management system, Stafferlink. And we'll touch a little bit on that as we get going. So a lot of your big healthcare systems and hospital systems in your major metropolitan cities use this. And a lot of the reason that they use this is because it allows for more efficiency, more fairness in the staffing process. You get access or easier access to more agencies for bidding purposes. So you're able to get more competitive bids. It eliminates some of that exclusivity that you'll hear a lot of your agencies talk of. And it's not to say that that doesn't happen, that there aren't exclusive contracts out there, but there are a lot less. As well, it opens the door for smaller agencies like us to get into the arena. Because as long as you meet the requirements that the vendor management system is asking for, you can get access. So that's a good thing. And also with the vendor management system, you get access to more opportunities. An example of this would be, again, I'm going to use career staff because that's the one that I've worked with the most. Their vendor management system is called Stafferlink, and one of their clients is Genesis Healthcare. So for you guys who don't know who Genesis Healthcare is, it's a skilled nursing facility. They also have long-term care, acute care rehab facilities throughout the United States. And when we were able to get access to their vendor management system, we saw all of the jobs that they had throughout the United States. And we saw per diem opportunities and short-term opportunities, local opportunities, as well as travel. So just getting that access really opened a bigger door for us, because then it allowed us to really staff on a national level if that was something that you or we were interested in doing. But it doesn't mean that we have to go to every individual Genesis Healthcare property to do that. Just getting access to this system allowed us to do that. And that's more or less the case for most of the systems. Most of the systems work with multiple clients. Stafferlink has clients pretty much in every state. They have hospital systems, they do rehab, therapy jobs, they work with school systems to provide healthcare staffing. They also work with LTAC hospitals, so it's a variety of opportunities there for you when you think about the vendor management system. And I always tell people, you kind of want to have a mix of both direct clients and a vendor management system, just to kind of balance things off. As we already know now with the COVID-19 and kind of some of the challenges that it's presented, some of your direct clients may not have as many needs. So it's always great to operate also in a vendor management system where they may have more needs just because they just have more access. So I posted this onto the group. Okay. Yeah, I posted this onto the group, and this is as accurate as of last year. And this kind of lists out some of the vendor management systems out there. And you guys have probably heard of these companies before, because for some of the vendor management systems or MSPs, they also operate as agencies. So Career Staff, the MSP, also has a division of it called Care Staff, which is the agency division. So all of these companies operate as agencies and agencies and have a vendor management component to them. Some of the more popular ones are AMN Healthcare. You guys have seen people post for that. Medifast, Health Source Global, the one at the bottom, Locum Leaders, Nurse Finders. They're all a part of a vendor management system, and then they also provide staffing services. So I tell people, as you're kind of growing your agency, it's always a great idea, and I'll get into this way more in detail next week about groups. So there are hundreds, maybe thousands, but there are definitely hundreds of healthcare staffing, recruiting groups. And I encourage you guys to be a part of as many as possible. And this is why, because you want to kind of get familiar with those companies. ShiftWise is another one that staff and operate as a vendor management system so that you can kind of get an idea of what the bill rates might look like. So we'll talk more about that, but I definitely encourage you guys to become a part of that. And then a lot of your larger ones, a lot of your larger popular healthcare staffing VMS companies own other ones. So AMN Healthcare also owns Nurse Choice, and they own another company, and then ShiftWise and Medical Staffing Solutions are under the same company. So that's some information, and it takes a moment to kind of bring it all together to know. But some of your popular vendor management systems include Medifast, ShiftWise, StafferLink, AMN Healthcare, Health Trust, Favorite Healthcare, which a lot of you guys know also has a division that does staffing, Great Tree, Focus One, Fieldglass, and NurseBridge. So for each vendor management system, similar to working with a direct client, they have specific requirements. So this is kind of where it's a little bit different than working with a direct client. So for most of these, they have specific requirements for agencies to get access. So what you're looking to do is to get access to these systems to see these jobs. And most of them require that you have business insurance, and that's something that you guys either are working on or already have completed. And that typically means your professional, your general and professional liability, and you should just have that to cover your business. And then most of them also require that you have workers' compensation. So the workers' compensation requirement can vary a little bit from VMS to VMS. So I didn't put specific amounts here just because it would depend on what that specific company is asking for. And when you reach out to many of them, some of them will easily provide you with a requirement list. And some may say we're not accepting any new agencies. But a lot of that just depends on what's going on. Now, I will say in these times, they're very, very open to accepting smaller agencies just because we have more access, a little bit more of a bandwidth than some of your larger agencies to fill some of their needs. So they've become more so this year open to allowing your smaller agencies to get in without meeting every single requirement. But the first three that I list here are going to be what every VMS requires. So they're going to always require your workers' comp and your business insurance, your completed W-9 form, which is essentially a W-2 type form for your business. And that's something that you can get on irs.gov, or you can just Google W-9 form. And it's just telling them your EIN number, the owner of the business, the location. And then they're also going to require that they be employees of your organization. So I know the question has come up within the group during a few of my one-on-ones about 1099 versus W-2 employees. And for working with vendor management systems, the individuals that you staff at these facilities have to be employees of your company. So that's not something that you can work around. And then a few additional requirements that some of the vendor management systems ask for are these that I've highlighted with a star. And they may ask that you be in business for 1 year. So 1 year in staffing agency business, that might be in a requirement that they have. They may ask that you're JCO or Joint Commission certified, or that you have any other SBA certifications. And examples of SBA certifications would be veteran owned or minority owned or women owned, or a combination of all of those things. And as we go through the program under resources, I'll talk a little bit more about those certifications, but the process of getting certified is very beneficial, especially if you fall into any or all of those categories. because it gives you access to more contracts as well as priority on certain types of contracts, especially within your state and local and federal governments. But the process for the most part looks the same to get the certification. So I really just refer you to the website to do the process and maybe ask some generic questions about it. But if you have it already, or if it's something that you're interested in doing, it's definitely beneficial. And when reaching out to any of the companies, it would definitely be something that I would include in the conversation. So once you've met these requirements, whichever ones that they're asking for, then, and you're able to get access. So meeting the requirements is providing them with documentation of these items. You know, typically there may be some back and forth with an account manager, and once you're cleared and they've approved all your documents, you've got access to the system. So this is really when all the work starts. Most of the companies provide a low-level training for you, so kind of a training overview, as well as access to a credentialing team and your account manager, because that's typically the first person that you'll work with. And at that point, you're kind of on your own to move forward. So it's important that when deciding to join a vendor management system, you kind of thought through how you plan to incorporate it into your business operations and your business structure, just because things will move a little bit differently than your direct client. With your direct client, there'll be probably a lot more flexibility. The communication might be a little bit different with regards to what's happening with that with their staff and scheduling and things like that. It might be a little bit informal. It might just be happening via email or a text message. Whereas with the vendor management system, there's a few different rules. So once you've submitted all your paperwork, they'll send over to you a contract that you'll sign, and it'll outline the parameters of the agreement. Most of the contracts are 1 year. And then it'll talk a little bit about the specific credentialing that the employees will need to have per the clients that you'll be working with, as well as it'll touch a little bit on the scheduling and the payouts. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those things from my experience. So once you've gotten access and you've completed the training, and all of them typically provide a standardized training process, a lot of the forms that you'll need will be provided to you. So if you're staffing for a long-term care or a LTAC hospital, a lot of the forms that are additional forms that that particular client is looking for, they'll provide to you. And some of those forms might be like a specific checklist that they want you to use. Another form might be attestation form. Another form, if they want you to do any sort of specific testing. So a lot of times if they use their own forms, it's because they also want to keep documentation of that for their own records. So in addition to their own forms that the company will provide, that if the client wants you to have specific forms. Of course, again, you have to make sure that these are employees of your company. You also have to do a drug screen and background. So within your contract with the vendor management system, they'll outline what specific drug screens or backgrounds the client is requiring. So from my experience, it's either been a 7-panel or 10-panel, and then they'll also get a specific to say what specific drugs need to be tested. So that's something that you need to consider, and that's something that might be a little different than your direct client. So your direct client might be comfortable with a 5-panel, because for the most part, they're 5, 7, and 10-panel options. They're also going to put a time frame on how old. It needs to be less than a year old or 60 days old. And that'll be the same thing for the background. For some clients, they may just let you do a traditional background search, that does the Social Security search, your OIG and other standard searches. But for some clients, they may require that you have fingerprints. So all that information will be included in your contract and it'll be accessible to you. But those are things you want to think about when joining a vendor management system, as well as asking your account manager when you're going through the process of signing up. And then your traditional things that every healthcare professional should have, you should have as a part of your application package, which would be, I didn't put it on here, but it would be your resume. So your applicant's resume or your employee's resume, forms regarding TB, Hep B, flu vaccination, CPR. Okay, resume is there. Supervisory references. That would kind of be standard whether you're working with a direct client or a vendor management system. Some of the systems, because it is an internet-based system, would require that you get the forms in a way that you can upload them onto the VMS system. So I encourage people, even though iPhones are great, try to get the forms via DocuSign, because you also have to keep track of the forms. And sometimes if you get them sent to you via a image on the phone, it could be hard to turn it into a PDF to upload it. So joining a system like DocuSign, HelloSign, or Kamana are all great kind of credentialing platforms where you can save documents and be able to get them signed, where people can sign them on their phone and upload them there as well. And it allows you to easily store those forms in your employee records. So once you kind of complete this process, sometimes the actual bidding process can vary depending on the client. So with being a part of a vendor management system, it's also kind of being part of a bidding system. So it kind of operates a little bit like eBay, in that not only your agency, but multiple agencies have the same access. So it's mostly up to the client to determine who they select for the position. So agency A could submit their employee for that job. Agency B could submit their employee for that job. Typically, you don't have a lot of agency submissions for every job unless it's a popular job. And popular could mean particular specialty or location. So like popular locations could be California and Florida when the Northeast is cold, or Texas when the Northeast is cold. And then some locations are popular just because they have higher bill rates or higher pay rates. So that's some things that you just kind of have to work through as you get familiar with the system and just kind of the travel world. But as far as like your local opportunities, typically when you're staffing locally, it's a pretty seamless process to meet the requirements, get access to the system, sign your contracts, you and the vendor management system, credential your employees, and be able to staff them consistently. With the traveling is where you might have a little bit more competitiveness. So the other piece that's kind of good about the vendor management system to me is that not only do you have the option of credentialing your people and having that in place on one system, most of the systems also do their scheduling in that same system. So you'll have the piece of it that'll have the credentials of the employees for your particular agency, and then there'll be a second part of it that'll actually have the scheduling. So for us, in our experience, we staff per diem local and travel. And those opportunities allowed us to staff them all within this one system, which was really nice, so that we kind of were able to see a quick shot of our travel people, our local people that might be on local contracts. And then as openings came up for per diem shifts, we were able to see that as well and share it with our employees. It's usually accessible because it's on the internet. You can access it on your phone and your laptop, wherever you are, which is also a great feature. A lot of them do handle the invoicing. So instead of you having to invoice like you would a direct client on a weekly or monthly basis, the hours that employees have worked, typically that's automated. So employees have to either submit paper timesheets, or for some clients, they actually give them like a temporary clock in and clock out, where they'll be clocking in and out via the same system that employees do. And then that information kind of flows into the vendor management system, which is awesome because you can just kind of look at the hours, verify it, and then approve it. And then for some vendor management systems, there are some that the scheduling is able to be integrated into a scheduling app. So I think when I was talking last week about marketing or business structures, I kind of touched on your scheduling app, and I'll definitely get more into it next week. So your scheduling apps, where you want to kind of store open shifts if you're doing per diem, or sharing your shifts with your employees that are open and available, or contracts. So there are some vendor management systems that integrate into certain scheduling apps. So you're able to just kind of upload them onto that system, and then it'll automatically share it with your staff. And as I mentioned already, most of the scheduling opportunities or opportunities in vendor management systems include your per diems, travel, and local contracts, as long as that client does it. So if the client only does travel, or only does local, or only does per diem, that's how you'll see it. But most clients usually do at least all three or two. So if they don't do travel contracts, they'll definitely do per diem and local contracts. So the billing process. So I touched a little bit on the differences between direct clients and VMS. The billing process is a little bit different. So you've kind of done all of this, you've read over your contract, and you decided it's a good choice. So how does the VMS get paid? So that's where we're going to talk a little bit here, is they get paid by taking a percentage or a flat fee from you. And that'll vary from vendor management system to vendor management system. So on average, we're seeing that from your invoiced hours or payments, they'll typically take, if they're taking a percentage, 3 to 5% of that. And then there are a few vendor management systems out there that actually don't do percentages. They'll just do a flat fee. And that flat fee has ranged between $300 to $500 a year. So this is something that you want to definitely consider when you're setting your bill rates. So I'll definitely share all this more in detail next week. But bill rates are essentially what you're billing your facility. So it doesn't matter if you're billing a direct client or a vendor management system, you're still using bill rates. And whatever you decide on that, what that is, specifically for your VMS clients, you want to incorporate the 3 to 5% in there. So if you're doing, say your bill rate was $50 initially, so maybe you do your direct client at $50. But if you're going to use a vendor management system, you might want to put it at $53, just so that at the end, you're kind of taking home that same amount of money. So with the bill rates, many vendor management systems allow you to create your own bill rate. There are a few that have set bill rates, and what that is you get access to the system. They say we're looking for an RN for a LTAC hospital in Maritime, Florida. The bill rate for this role is $55. So those are flat bill rates. You can't negotiate it. You won't be able to change it. So when you look in the system and you see the different opportunities, you really want to consider, am I going to be able to get ARN who I can pay X, Y, and Z dollars, and also have the agency take home X, Y, and Z dollars. And we'll go into kind of creating your formulas and things of that nature for determining what your bill rate is, which should heavily be based on the expenses of the business. But another thing to consider with your bill rate is it's what you're billing to the facility. So it doesn't matter if it's a VMS or a direct client, but you always want to make sure that with the bill rate, you know that you're taking out a percentage of it to pay your employee, and then the rest is left over for the agency, as well as whatever percentage that the vendor management system is getting. So you want to always factor that in when it comes to vendor management systems. So this is really all I have to touch on about the vendor management systems. When we get into recruiting a little bit more, it'll all kind of come together, because we'll be able to talk about pay rates and pay packages and how to look for pay packages. I would encourage you guys, I'm going to save this PDF onto the group now, as well as I would encourage you guys to maybe do some research on some of the companies that we see out here listed to kind of get a feel for them. And then when we get into the recruiting and things of that nature, I'll touch on kind of how to reach out. So the typical process of reaching out or getting in touch with them is just making the initial phone call. An account manager will typically tell you one of two answers when you make the initial phone call. They'll say, okay, we'll provide you some information about becoming a agency or a partner. Some of them call them partners within our network. So there's different terminology for that. Or they'll send you a link where you'll actually have to go in and do like an online application. So every one of these is a little bit different, but once you do that, at some point they'll communicate to you the requirements. So I encourage you guys, because most of you all are in the very early stages, is to just kind of include that in one of your goals to do research, but not move too far ahead, just because if you don't have your insurance in place and your workers' comp and, you know, your W-9 and things of that nature, and for those who require joint commission in 1 year in staffing, you won't be able to move beyond the point of the initial conversation. But kind of doing the research now kind of allows you to get an idea of who their clients are, because that's definitely a question I would ask. And that's usually something that you can see online, who the clients they work with, and kind of get a feel for the process. And then as you kind of get closer to the place where you're ready to, you have all the other things in place and you're ready to work with one, you know, I could definitely work with you guys one-on-one to make that happen. But I'll save this onto the group so you guys can have it. Vendor management systems is definitely a viable option as a client alternative. It definitely comes with its pros and cons, so I always tell people to weigh it out. For a lot of new owners, this wouldn't be the recommended way to go initially, just because there are additional requirements that your direct clients typically won't ask of you, and then the payout for these, for the vendor management systems, is a little bit longer than your traditional direct clients. So vendor management systems payouts, meaning that you, the agency, would get paid, can range from about 45 to 60 days. So in doing that, you would actually have to maintain or uphold your payroll in the meantime. So I definitely want to share it with you guys, but I wouldn't say make this your first choice, but definitely have it as an option once you're up and running and you kind of gotten through all the preliminary stuff when it comes to staffing and getting your agency set up. So, okay. So do you have any questions? I think, Sharon, are you just listening? But if you guys do have any questions, like I mentioned, I'll share this actual Zoom meeting along with, okay, great. So do you have any questions, Sharon? Go ahead and drop your questions, Sharon, if you have any. I'll drop this Zoom meeting along with the little write-up that I did down there. And if you haven't gotten a chance to get through the first two modules, I would encourage you to do so, because now we're kind of getting into the meat and the guts of staffing. Yes.
Hey, so of course my question, but I had a question, but then you say you're gonna talk about it later on. I guess my question is figuring out how do you know that which vendor management serves what hospital, or do you even have to call the hospital first to find out what vendor management they're using? But then you say you're going to talk about that later.
So you can reach out to the hospital. So I tell people to do both. So you can reach out to the hospital to see if they are using a vendor management system. If you don't really get anywhere with it, I would just Google the company. So I would Google something like Medifest, and they'll typically out on their site who their clients are. And let's see, I might be able to do it with the Staffer link. I think they have it on their website. So I'm going to go to Staffer link and see. Okay. So this is the website. So I'm going to share my screen again. And then, because I work with them, so this is a link, and their email address is stafferlink.com. And let's see. They've made some changes from the last time I've gone to their site a little bit. And they kind of talk about it, so I would definitely look at it. Okay, so here are some of the companies that they work with. So most of them will list on their website the companies that they work with. So these groups here are actual agencies, so it's clients and partners. But let's see. Community Healthcare System is a hospital system. Emory Healthcare, which is another large hospital system out of Atlanta. Northside Hospital. Okay, so they just list some of them, but if you go to the website of the vendor management systems, a lot of them will say who they're working with. So that'll kind of give you an idea. Let's see. So this just kind of touches on your background. Okay. So let's see. So this is another one. Mess. And it's not all inclusive. So like on Stafferlink's website, they didn't have all of the clients that they work with. But to kind of get an idea, you can kind of share, but reach out to the clients. Us is definitely a question that you can ask. You can kind of say like, what are some of your clients that you work with? Yeah, most of them are fairly transparent about clients they work with. Okay, so for them, they didn't list out specific names. Or less names, but they kind of touch on some of the types of hospital systems. Trying to say, yeah, they don't really get client names. But if you call, I would encourage you to call and you talk with the account manager. You want to kind of find out that in like the initial call, as well as their requirements for agencies to sign up. So those are the two main questions you want to make sure that you ask. You want to find out from them the process, so what the process looks like. And for Medifest, they're calling them associate vendors. So then you say to you, okay, so the process is you have to go to our website and appear as an associate vendor. But also in that phone call, I would encourage you guys to also find out who are some of the clients that you work for. So they may say who the clients are, or they may not. But if you're looking to work in, a specific state with a specific healthcare system, reach out to them, and they should definitely be able to tell you who they're working with. It may take a couple of phone calls to get there. I would probably start with the Human Resources Department or that information and let them know you're a healthcare staffing agency in the area. You're looking to provide, temporary staffing services for the hospital. Are you guys working with a vendor management system? Can I get information or a contact that I can reach out to? And that way, it might take a couple of phone calls, but at least that way you'll know that that hospital system works with this specific vendor management system. Does that answer your question, Sharon?
Yes, thank you.
So, and if you run into any hiccups or anything like that, just let me know and kind of let me know what happened, what you did, and I can kind of see if I can maybe figure something out.
I guess my other question is, for the hospitals that use vendor management, because I have tried to contact some of them, is it because whenever they use the vendor management, they will not allow anybody else to access those contracts without using the vendor management, or some of them do both?
Some might do both. So there are some hospital systems that do both and may offer like exclusive contracts to certain agencies. I know I've seen, and you guys may have seen too, companies that may advertise a job and say exclusive contracts. But typically there's less and less of those types of things, just because from a time-saving point of view and a fairness point of view, more of your large healthcare systems, hospitals, especially those affiliated with schools and universities, wanted to kind of open the door to everybody. So offering, those exclusive contracts to the big companies means that, middle, smaller agencies wouldn't get access to it. But using a vendor management system essentially guarantees that, hey, your agency, my agency, any agency that signs up and meets the requirements that we have can see all the same jobs. So I think it's kind of built to create a level of fairness.
Okay.
So that you can get in there and see the contracts and bid. I can get in and bid so that it's not mostly just based on your agency's name or reputation, and just to also create fairness for people to get access to the jobs. Because typically if there's a level of exclusivity for the contracts, a lot of times those agencies as well will share it to just a certain population of people. So that was a great question. Yeah, because the vendor management concept is used in a lot of other industries. It's used in government as well, your federal government. So it's not new per se, but it is kind of new for the healthcare arena. And it also allows your healthcare systems to better control the costs, so that, University of Chicago Medical Center, they have a specific budget. So with that budget, they can see, all the bid or bill rates for different agencies and kind of budget their positions for travelers or local or per diem shifts accordingly, but it not be based on whether or not they're a maximum or a larger agency versus, do they meet the requirements? Do they have the staff that are qualified to fill the position? If they meet box A, box B, box C, yes, we'll bring them on board. and we'll bring their staff on board as well. So I'm going to save this video along with the little write-up that I did, and then there's another video that I'll tag into it that talks about the difference, kind of like what is an MSP, what is a VMS, and I have another video that I'll share with you guys as well, just to kind of give you a feel for what it is. I will go more in depth, and it'll make a little bit more sense after next week, where I talk about, you know, recruiting, because that kind of plays into creating a recruiting strategy so that you're able to make sure that you're offering your employees a variety of positions. So in my experience, when you work with a direct client, sometimes they may not do longer term contracts, you know, for whatever reason. You know, they may only offer you per diem or shorter term contracts. So with your vendor management systems, it really opens the door for your 36-week, 13-week travel and local contracts, as well as allow those individuals who start out with your organization per diem to open the door for a contract. And this is the way that it's been able to work for us, is that many employees do per diem because they love per diem. I get it. I love per diem. But if at some point, for whatever reason, whether it's for you to make a big purchase as an employee or, you know, just to save up money or what have you, you wanted to get into a contract, it's a little bit easier to transition an employee into a contract through a vendor management system than through a direct client, just because it's sometimes a budget issue. So we've had a lot of our per diem employees where the same facility that they're working with open up contracts, and we tell them, hey, are you interested in a contract? And they'll be like, oh, of course. You know, well, we have this 30-day contract with the same facility that you're working at. You know, we can kind of work towards slotting you into that contract. So it's happening that way. We have one employee that worked for a whole year that way, and her contract just got extended, which was great for both her and us. And then we've also had employees who, again, started out per diem and worked at a particular facility where they enjoyed the person, they worked really hard, they represented well, and they were name requested. So the facility would say, we want this person to come back for this shift. That was done a couple of different times. And then that person also got offered a contract as well. So I found it a little bit easier to transition people into a contract when they're able to really get a feel for the facility. So like working the per diem shifts is great. I think is a great fit for many people, long-term or short-term. But that, from a VMS standpoint of view, also opens the door to be able to transition those same people into short-term or long-term contracts with that same client. So that allows you to build up your rapport with that facility. It allows there to be like a consistent flow of income for them and you. So if their contract is 13 weeks, you kind of know you have those 13 weeks. If they're doing really well and want to extend and they're happy there, you kind of know that that's something that's taken care of. So I found that to be able to happen in your vendor management systems a lot more seamlessly. So, but like I said, you want to have a mix of both, just because healthcare staffing probably now more than ever is unpredictable. So, okay, so that's all I got for you guys on this Saturday evening. Next week, we're going to go into recruiting. So if you haven't had the chance to catch up, please feel free to do so. This weekend, we should be touching on recruiting on Tuesday or Thursday. I'll update it tonight, the date, probably Thursday, to give everybody a chance to catch up. And then the following week, I'll do something very similar to this, where I do smaller sessions that go a little bit more in depth on some of the bigger topics that we'll touch on in recruiting. So, okay. Well, thank you.
Tamisha, just one more thing before you close out.
Okay.
I'm wondering, I was checking the documents you posted, and I have not got the checklist, the full checklist. How do I get that? Because I need that for the state requiring for me to get the license.
Correct. I'm going to put it up tonight. Okay. I'll be putting it up
Thank
tonight.
you.
No problem. Okay. Any other questions? And there's some up there, Sharon. But
Yes.